Good morning. I'm Richard Kincaid, and I'm the CFO of HEALIOS. So today I'm going to present our full year 2025 financial results, and along the way, give you an update on our business. So this is our disclaimer. And so first, I want to sort of make a comment about how we're thinking about the company and our vision, and we say here our business policy currently. And I think those who know us will be familiar with us as a bioventure listed in Japan that's been seeking to commercialize cell therapies. And our history is now about 15 years. We started in 2011, we listed in 2015, and we're real close to commercializing our first product in cell therapy. But there's a bigger vision in play. It's a big idea as a Japanese listed bioventure to do what we're doing. And so we say here that HEALIOS is going from being a biotech startup to the world's leading cell therapy maker. And we're doing this around a core competency in cell therapy manufacturing. And so we're pioneering high reproducibility and scalability in making cell therapies. With our ARDS approval, we expect to be the first allogeneic cell therapy maker to do this in a 3D bioreactor, right? And with that technology and capability, our goal is to prove that cell therapy can be implemented worldwide by a Japanese biotech. And so I'll go through some things today, I think, that make that evident, and I hope that you all can see us in that light. And so we're making great progress. And so this slide is showing achievements in 25 through Jan 26. And on the left-hand side, there's some specifics around the sort of product areas that we're developing. And on the right-hand side, we explain concrete steps that we've taken towards Japanese and US approval. This is for invermestrocel in ARDS. And so we've got clarity around our conditional approval application strategy. We achieved this last year. Our focus is very much on ARDS. So late last year, we've made that extremely clear. Earlier in the year, we gained agreement with the authorities about how we're going to go about applying for conditional approval and the contents of that approval application. We've aligned on all the parts of the application and also on the process leading to an ultimate full approval in Japan. We also in January, initiated our phase 3 trial. We filed our CTN in Japan, that cleared. And this ARDS path, both the conditional approval in Japan, which has already been sort of pre-agreed with the authorities here, and the pathway for our global phase 3 study, which would be a shot on goal for us to get an approval in the US and the rest of the world. This offers the company and our investors the highest probability of success. And to getting a real powerful commercial outcome for the company. And again, it's all been agreed upon with the regulatory authorities in terms of pathway. We've also positioned the company to have unmatched manufacturing capacity. All right, we announced last year that we received a 7 billion yen grant commitment from the Ministry of Economy in Japan. This is to build our own facility that's now being worked on in Kobe, Japan, which will put us in a position, the plan associated with this grant puts us in a position to make tens of thousands of doses of commercial product for invermestrocel commercialization. That's unheard of in the cell therapy industry right now. I can't stress this enough. We'll do this in 500-liter bioreactors. It makes us the most advanced cell manufacturer in the world for allogeneic cell therapies. We also strengthened our financial foundation, right? So what are the component parts to put us in a position to really commercialize a cell therapy? All right. Of course, we need this great technology that's effective in patients, but on the regulatory side, we need the pathway and the agreement with the regulators to get it to the finish line. So we have that. We have this large-scale, efficient manufacturing capability, and we've got the money now. And so we just raised 6.3 billion yen. Our cash position materially exceeds 10 billion yen now. It's been a while since we've been in this position. And we also have the opportunity to create another 6.5 billion yen of cash through fixed warrants that are now outstanding over the next couple of years. And so that's the third leg to the stool here in terms of positioning us to do all the things we need to do to create this value for the company and for our shareholders. On the left-hand side, there's some specifics about the different technologies. I think it's important to highlight a couple of them. I won't go through them all. But with respect to InvoMestrocell, which is what's labeled here as bone marrow-derived cells, it's been important to advance our collaboration with Minaris. Our initial commercial production is in Yokohama at Minaris' facility in 50-liter bioreactors. All right, we got the grant that I mentioned. We also have highlighted, and we'll do this, I think, on an increasing basis this year, the way these cells are protective to the kidney in the context of acute inflammation. And so we put some data out there. This is relevant for our trauma trial, which is going on at the University of Texas in Houston, and potentially much more broadly than that. We are focusing on ARDS. We made that clear. Stroke is still there, but as a 70-something person company with the profile that I've described, we need to focus, and it's good as a company to be extremely focused at this stage to get some big wins for our investors. On the iPSL side, we still have a wonderful technology platform. We're making progress in our medical materials, and specifically with respect to culture supernatant, which is our cosmetic business. We announced late last year that we're going to be working more with Alfresa on distribution. So I believe we have unparalleled cell therapy market positioning, right? And so as a relatively small scale Japanese bioventure listed here in the cell therapy space, we are positioned to take on the world, starting with InvoMestrocell, which is these bone marrow-derived multipotent adult progenitor cells. We're addressing some very large indications in the acute critical care field, right? Focusing on ARDS. Right? So we'll get our approval advanced here in Japan. That'll be the initial approval. And we're going to be going for approvals in these bigger markets in the rest of the world with a focus on the United States. So that global phase 3, which is that trial that's pivotal towards a US and European approval, that has been initiated. We also, again, just to reiterate, we have agreement with the regulator in Japan on our conditional approval path here domestically in advance of that, based on phase 2 data. Then there's ischemic stroke and trauma. This is a big patient population, over 1.5 million patients per year in Japan and the US combined. We have the manufacturing capability and are building, based on a Japanese government grant, the capacity to address this market in a way that no one else is positioned to do. Right? It makes us relevant to all the big markets around the world. Then on the iPSL side of things, this is a longer-term play for us. Right? iPSLs are still a relatively new technology. Various folks are advancing iPSLs. We continue to, in a very cost-efficient way. Right? We've got to focus on where the near-term commercial win is to be had, and that's in ARDS. But we have a trial going on in partnership with Rachera, which is formerly Sumitomo Pharma, in RP cells. So that's our original product that's ongoing in a joint development framework. And then where's the big opportunity with cell therapy using iPS cells? I mean, there are multiple areas, but for us, we believe we have a great product for immuno-oncology. So these are gene-engineered NK cells. This is being advanced in partnership with a bioventure here called Akatsuki Therapeutics, who's driving the research and development. So that's a big market to go for over time. And the virtuous cycle we're trying to create here is get a win in ARDS, address the Japanese market, build up our manufacturing capability and capacity, drive efficiency in that process, be the large-scale, cost-efficient, high-quality maker of a cell therapy. And we already have great technology in the iPSL space. We have great bioreactor production capability. Make that work for these iPSL programs too. and bringing additional products to the world. At the bottom, it says sales of medical supplies. There's a cosmetic business to build here, which is a byproduct of our manufacturing process for Invamestrocel. You'll start to see that generate revenues in this year, we believe, and everything's going fine with manufacturing, and we're working with Alfresa to build up client relationships there and work towards sell-through. So again, to reiterate, so important for cell therapy. Manufacturing is not easy for cells. This is a living product. These are living products, and precision manufacturing of them consistently in high quality again and again and again is a challenge. We've really mastered it at Helios. We have unmatched capability and capacity, right? It's taken a lot to get here. It has taken to position us for this large-scale manufacturing support from the Japanese government, which is tremendous. But this is likely to be the world's first approved 3D manufactured allogeneic cell therapy, right? It's an efficient process. This is in 50-liter bioreactors. This is happening at Minaris in Yokohama. It's a stable process, and everything is proceeding smoothly. But again, the grant is funding scale up to 500-liter reactors, which we have successfully manufactured twice in non-GMP, in a PD setting. We've got the Medi grant to fund the commercial prep for all of that, to get the suites up, get the equipment and the infrastructure in, and then do the testing to be able to turn this into a commercial-ready process. And again, that plan has us, it's scoped out for building capacity up to 40,000 doses of production per annum. Obviously, it can be bigger than that if need be. We don't need it to be that just to cover Japan, but this would position us to really be prepared for US, Europe, etc. It's worth saying that Helios is very, very interested in and focused and has a concrete implementation path to layer in AI and robotics into our manufacturing capability. This was part of our grant application. This is part of our strategic path. And so when we're the initial bioreactor produced allogeneic cell therapy maker in commercial, and we're the one who's most scaled and most efficient, when we layer in AI and robotics, we can drive further efficiency, drive further optimizations of cost, optimization of quality and cost of goods. And we're also very intent on strengthening the supply chain to be able to do this at real scale. We have alignment with governments, and this is part of it, right? There's more already and there's more to come, but we have this 7 billion yen grant for facility and equipment cost burden for our CDMO build / 500-liter bioreactor build for Invamestrocel. And we also have a grant from the Department of Defense in the United States supporting trauma. This is trauma resulting from severe injury. It's trauma with hemorrhagic shock. It's obviously a very military relevant indication. It's one of the 7 focus areas for DHA support in the US. And so this is a phase 2, 156 patient study, and it's basically fully funded by the DoD. And so when the data comes out from this study, and the primary endpoint is degree of AKI, acute kidney injury, you'll see, I think, if it's good, we should expect more support. Now, there's more work we're doing with grants on both sides, and so I'm quite optimistic that we'll have news to report to you over the course of this year in relation to additional alignment and funding from governments both in Japan and the United States. Again, it's worth stressing that we are focused on ARDS. I think there's, importance for a company of our scale, importance for a company at our stage, not yet commercial, but about to be, to have clarity of purpose and focus. And these two things are real, being run in parallel and are of critical and utmost importance to us. And so I can't stress that enough. It's the approval of our approval application in Japan, getting that filed and ultimately getting the approval. for conditional approval in Japan. Again, we're aligned with the regulators on how that's going to be done, and we're working towards it every day, intensively. In the phase 3 trial, and this is the way that we get approval in the US. We're starting in Japan. We're going to stage out geographical expansion of that trial. In the rest of the world, it's going to be about 80 sites globally. Super support from global KOLs. We're building up our global clinical ops team right now. We're building up the vendor set to be able to run this globally. And it's going to be sort of staged towards max scale over the course of time this year. But it's very exciting for me and for us to be part of this build. And there's so much enthusiasm about this trial. It will be the most important ARD study going on globally when it's up and running here. And what are we doing by means of these two things? Well, we're going to be the world's first ARDS therapy that's approved, and the world's first allogeneic cell therapy that's made in 3D bioreactors. So continuing to pioneer this space. And then in the US, we're going to try to make this treatment available for a 260,000 patient market in that country. It's not where this stops. It's a globally applicable product. We're going for global approval with this trial. So some milestones. I think this is important for investors to understand as you think about our ARDS activity. Like, what are the things, subset of things that we're having to get done in lockstep with really achieving these goals. And so we've initiated this trial. This has already happened, right, in Japan. We're going to expand it out globally. We're going to begin to enroll and open up sites in the US, in Asia, ex-Japan. You're going to see us run this trial in several countries. And we'll be making regulatory filings associated with that to start in different countries. As we've made clear, we're establishing our commercial production at Minaris in Yokohama. This is in 50-liter bioreactors, and that's going very smoothly. It's going as smoothly as one can imagine, and so we're pleased with the progress there, and that's going to put us in a position to have commercial product that we can sell in Japan. And obviously, we need to get that done to be able to commercialize here. Also, to commercialize, we need to have a sales and marketing system established. We're adding people to our team to build this. For ARDS, we're going to be running the study in Japan first until such time that we launch the product in Japan. So we're going to have limited enrollment in Japan in terms of time frame and in terms of numbers. But we're going to open up at a lot of sites. And so those sites will then smoothly transition into sites where we're selling. We'll expand from there. But this is our first product that we're selling because we are selling to hospitals that are focused on acute critical care and the ICUs. You don't need to be at all that many sites in Japan to cover the vast majority of the patients. And so it's a relatively straightforward sales and marketing system to build. And we don't need a huge sales team to be able to do this effectively. That is going to get built here soon. The application for manufacturing and marketing approval in Japan, I know, is a key focus for our stakeholders. And just this is a huge focus for us. And all these things are being worked on in parallel, and we're going to get that application filed and go for our approval as soon as possible. Remember, once we apply, and there's a 9-month waiting period to get the approval because this is an orphan indication. It's less than the 12 months that's usually applicable. This is our pipeline. I will refrain from saying more about it. I think I've covered pretty much all of it already in previous comments. So now for some financial highlights. We announced a third-party allotment deal in January that closed last week. We raised 6.3 billion yen in upfront cash, and we now have more than 10 billion yen in net cash on the balance sheet. I'll go through the numbers in a second, but this puts us in a very strong position. We haven't been in this strong of a financial position in a long time to do all the things that I've just gone through. Prepare for commercialization of ARDS in Japan, launch our phase 3 study, expand it out globally, and run it in a way that is aligned with how we want to do so, where we can drive it forward and systematically, as we're building up our team, as we're building up our quality control apparatus, and at the appropriate pace, expand out to ultimately about 80 sites. So as we do that, right, and make progress and go for the approval here in Japan and file, we would expect over the course of the next couple of years for these fixed warrants to exercise as well. And there's about 6.5 billion outstanding. We've seen a lot of exercises last year. You can see here, it shows what's been exercised versus what has not been. But this would bring in extra cash. I think it's important to say here too, there are multiple grants we're going for in relation to the global phase 3 study, both in Japan and the US, that we think will help defray some of the cost. The global phase 3 study is built to be up to 550 patients, but we can win at 300. That's our first efficacy look. And we're well funded to get to that. And remember, along the way, the trauma data is going to come out too. And so there's a lot of catalysts along the way. But ultimately getting to that data point in that US study, obviously if that's successful, would be dramatically transformative to our company. So this is our income statement for the full year last year. Again, remember we do our financial statements under IFRS, which creates a little bit of a distortion around OP versus net profit. But we have a top line that was down about 450 million yen year over year. That's because of a one-off in relation to RPE cell manufacturing licensing that we had in the year before that wasn't there, right? We have not yet really gotten into sort of ramp of any material sales from any of our products. It'll start this year, we believe, in terms of the culture supernatant. And then once we get our approval for ours, you should see a very different picture here. But OP is the line to focus on, I think, for a company at our stage, right? Again, we're in front of a commercialization of a cell therapy and an indication with no drugs, right? And so what do we burn? It's really aligned with the OP. So, the gap year over year was really almost equal to the reduction in revenue from this RP outcomes. We kept our expenses flat. You can see on the people side, the number of employees went up by 8, right? The R&D expenses went up slightly. We've been so efficient, in terms of getting into this really great position. Again, the best market positioning globally as a cell therapy maker. So we're about 64 people, 66 people. And you can tack on some more who are temp staff that aren't included in this. But we'll grow some this year. Along with that, expenses will come up, and we're running that phase 3 study. Expenses will come up, but it's going to be a gradual ramp. And remember, we're going for these grants that are going to help defray a very substantial, if we get them, would help defray a very substantial portion of that cost. So how big will our team become? Hard to predict exactly, but not dramatically bigger this year. It needs to be big enough, but we are lean and mean. We've gotten into this position through tough times, through the biotech winter. We've made ourselves very strong. We've increased the intrinsic value of the company dramatically through the post the downturn, and we want to do big things with small resources still. So OP minus 3.3 billion yen. That's like $22 million last year. It's again, a very efficient model, and we have some increase to expect this year, but not dramatically so. This is an explanation of finance income and finance costs. And again, this is where it gets a little bit distorted because of IFRS, how it handles like warrants we have outstanding. And we also have been building a venture fund business over time that is a consolidated subsidiary of HEALIOS, and that also impacts it. So that, please pay attention to this for an explanation. But again, focus on OP because that's much more aligned with cash out. This is our balance sheet. And so you can see that the cash position, this is in the notes on the right-hand side, at the end of the year was, cash and cash equivalents was 5.7 billion yen or thereabouts. Again, we raised 6.3 billion yen, and that money has come in as of last week. And so we're just saying we have, at this stage, more than 10 billion yen of cash, which again puts us in a very strong position. And so that's all. And I would reiterate that Helios has gotten very strong. We are positioned to go for our ARDS approval here in Japan and commercialize the product in Japan. We need to make the product for commercial, and that's going extremely smoothly at the Minaris facility. We're going to position ourselves to be the largest scale, most efficient cell manufacturer in the world, and we can do that now because of this really supportive 7 billion yen grant from the Japanese government. That's going to position us to be successful outside of Japan. We're starting a study that's the prerequisite for us getting approvals for ARDS outside of Japan, and we're funded now to do all this, right? And so that's how we're set up. The best positioned allogeneic cell therapy company in the world. Thank you so much for your time and all the support that's helped to get us here. We really appreciate it. Thank you.